So here we are. So let's jump in. Today we got actually a couple of really good questions. There's been a theme coming up with a lot of my clients and questions in the group and then questions on my Facebook page and things like that. A lot about caring for other people versus caretaking and what the real difference is on this. Because I imagine you guys, when we've dealt with codependency, it's all been about meeting the need of the other person, caring. And we don't really know the difference between caring and caretaking. And so getting clear on that makes sense. So caring for others involves a respect of boundaries and what's called autonomy. It's respecting the fact that the other individual can solve their problem. We don't need to do it. Our job is to choose what we want to do, meaning, do I want to hold space? Holding space means I'm going to just support them. Maybe they're having a bad day, I'll rub their back, kind of thing. Or I'll just listen to what they have to say about what's going on. But I'm not going to fix their problem for them. I will ask if they want feedback. I will ask if they want my point of view or my insight into what they want. I'm not going to inject it into the conversation without that consent, so that I can understand what they want. I can also ask, what do you need from me? Or what do you want from me in this situation? What would support you in this? That way they're able to define their own wants and needs and the boundaries they have with whatever it is they're dealing with. That's how we care for others. A lot of times it's going to reduce down to active listening and empathetic response, providing space, being present with them and whatever's going on. Healthy people generally are going to try to figure out the solutions on their own. If they don't know, then they're going to stay there. I don't know what to do. And then you're like, well, I've got a few ideas if you're open to it. And you're like, oh, okay, cool. You can talk about it and see what happens. Caretaking, though, assumes the other person can't fix the problem, so we're going to solve it for them. We're going to go in there and rescue them, right?
Right.
We're going to interfere with consequences. This is really important. Consequences are teachers. They are the opportunity in our life to learn and understand reality. It's to discover something like, oh, I made this mistake. This is what this is. What can I do differently next time? When we interfere with that process of discovery, we impair that person's ability to grow. We impair their ability to deal with their beliefs, their attitudes, their understanding of things that might be causing the problem we're trying to rescue them or protect them from. So we don't protect. We allow people to receive the consequences of their choices and allow them to navigate it. That way they become more empowered in themselves and they learn, especially with consequences, what not to do. They can start asking the question, what can I do differently so I get what I need or what I want out of this? That's one of the biggest things people do with caretaking is they get in there and they try to fix the problem, protect them from the consequence, and inhibit that person's ability to grow into a mature, healthy, available adult. The other thing caretaking does is it takes us off our problems. We stop focusing on what we need to be doing. It's easier to fix Joe's problems and ignore my problems. And so we got to get in there and be honest with ourselves. Am I avoiding my own issues here by fixating on that person's problems? As well as, is there a need I'm trying to get met by fixing or by caretaking? That's the big, big question to ask all the time. What is my need here? What do I really need? A lot of times it breaks down to being loved, being accepted, not being needed. If being needed shows up, you got to go deeper. The being needed is that hallmark signal of codependency. Like that post I made earlier today in the group, being needed versus being loved. And they're not the same thing, because healthy adults and healthy adult relationships are about autonomy of the individuals, meaning I'm an individual, you're an individual, we're whole. We get together and we create what's called mutual vision or unity. And then we support each other in our personal and independent goals. That's how a healthy, functional relationship actually works and thrives that way. It doesn't get caught up in trying to fix each other. It allows the other person to, hey, I've got a problem, I'm going to go fix it. Then we support them in their efforts to fix it. But we're not the source of the solution to their problems most of the time. So what do you guys think about that?
It's Kim. It was interesting what you said about, I have a tendency to, due to, my whatever, what I want them to provide me.
Mm-hmm.
So instead of verbally saying I need this, that, or the next thing from you, I would try to give it to them.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Like, oh, okay, well, can't you read my mind because I'm rubbing your back, or I'm, doing this for you. So I want you to do that for me.
Right.
But don't say it.
Yeah. Yeah, right. That's a passive aggressive approach towards getting our needs met. And it inhibits what we're really avoiding there is like shame a lot of times, or a fear of rejection.
Sure. Being
turned down there. So that's an excellent example because we do that a lot. We give what we need or what we hope they'll, hey, I'll do this and hopefully they'll do it back to me.
Right.
Yeah, catching that and then becoming proactive with a direct question. Hey, could you rub my back? I like what I do with my children when because I've got knots in my back. I will I'll be like, hey, it's time to massage. Can you massage the spot? Because I call it the massage spot. And I'm like, yeah, they'll get in there and just knead on it for a little while. Being proactive and being direct is actually a really powerful form of intimacy. Hi, Tobiah.
Hi.
And so it's a great way of displaying our appreciation and want for the other person to show up in our lives. Now, if we're in a relationship where we ask for what we want and they're consistently not willing to return it or give it, or they criticize or attack it, this is a very important signal to the health of the relationship. Because that tells us, hey, this person really isn't interested in me. They're interested in the benefit I give them. It gets back to that concept of I call utility relationship.
Mm-hmm.
So that's really important to look at. So that, in a way, vulnerability is one of the best filters we have about understanding how the other person is relating to us. The more vulnerable I am, the more I'm willing to put out what I want or what I need from a person, the more I understand where they're coming from based on how they treat what I request from them. Because mutual healthy relationships, it's safe to ask. And if they don't want to do it, they say no in a kind and direct way. They say, not right now, but maybe in an hour. Right now I've got to take care of this. They have a regard for your need. They care about it, but they're not going to please you. They're going, if they've got a boundary or they need to do something, they're going to be upfront with it.
Mm-hmm.
So what do you think about that?
No, that makes perfect sense. It's, I'm talking about a, relationship that is now over, but I didn't ask for what I wanted because of fear.
Right.
Yeah.
So let's dig a bit if you want. Because sometimes we have fear just in general because we've had abuse in the past. But sometimes we have fear for a very good reason, because that person created a hostile environment on such a consistent basis we didn't feel safe asking anyway. So it's important to look at the context there for yourself too.
Mm-hmm.
Because codependency is just a result of neglect and abuse. It's how we survived it. It's not who we are. It's not an identity or a disease. It's a coping mechanism to surviving that kind of stuff. So, and the beauty of it is, now that you're outside that relationship, you can institute the healthy strategies, which will automatically start eliminating your relationship potentials. Meaning, if you go out on your date, operating very directly and very upfront starts weeding them out fast, because they'll be triggered. It's such vulnerability is really cool that way. It's like, oh, you don't like my need? On to the next one.
Yeah.
Because dating, I have a course I'll be creating. It's called Dating to Discover. Dating post-codependency is about discovering people, not about attaching and moving right into commitment like we typically do. So
Yeah, exactly.
okay.
Well, I grew up, both my parents were alcoholics. I was married to an alcoholic, and this last relationship, I'm also an alcoholic, but been in recovery for like 20 years. But
There we go.
Every relationship I've had, I've been, it's been, I've been trying to fix everybody.
Yep.
And I'm finally starting to see that, my real issue isn't really so much anything more than codependency from the get-go.
Yeah. It was the model you were taught. It's how love worked, and it's not your fault. And now you get to see it. You get to change it. You get to have real love, which is about being seen for who you are, not for what you do, like the fixing and the pleasing. Becomes less utility. Utility means there's this question, what's in it for me? So it's a benefit-based system. I get X from you. That's why I have you around. But in connection, it's more like, I'm happy you exist. I'm grateful you're here because I care. I like you. I like your presence. I like your energy. I like who you are. That's magic. And that's where you can go as you heal the internalized shame, the internalized sense of not being worthy of actually being loved for who you are. Your world shifts towards that, and you start to get more of that in your friendships, and even in dating, you'll meet people who like you for who you are. You may not be compatible, but they like you for who you are, and able to navigate that kind of experience. So, yeah. Go ahead. What do you think about that?
No, it's just getting to that place of feeling worthy. I also simultaneously was terminated from a job right at the same time.
Yeah.
My significant other, I've never been fired from a job in my life. So I've got a totally clean slate, and I never have in my life. So I feel like I've got this huge void. I don't, I'm not needed at my job. I'm not needed in my relationship. My daughter is graduating from college. She doesn't need me. So nobody needs me.
Right. And now the big question is who are you beyond being needed?
No clue.
Right. That's the thing to explore right there. It's like, oh, well, what do I want? And that's something I teach quite a bit in Foundation, is understanding the wants. And then when we start healing our relationship to ourselves, getting rid of the shame, we start reconnecting with our want, because want comes from play. It comes from creativity and from being in our own presence. And so one thing you can do to start finding out your wants pretty quick is go to the store and listen to what your body likes and doesn't like. And that sensation that comes up with those two differences is what I call the want impulse or desire impulse. And that can start helping you hear yourself again and start tuning into, oh, I don't like this. Oh, I like that. Then you can start making choices. And it's a really simple exercise, but it works really, really well.
Actually, I went to the grocery store today and I bought some things I haven't bought in a really long time because they aren't what he would eat.
Right.
That's a perfect example of what you were just talking about, I think.
Are they things that you want to eat?
Yeah. Yeah,
Bingo.
yogurt and, you know, granola and just weird that you mentioned that.
Yep, you're tuning right into your want again. And one thing we tend to get locked into is analysis. We want to analyze everything. I've got to figure out what I need, what I want. Tell me, brain, what the answer is, brain. And the brain's like, I don't know, but I'll give you more questions. What do I need? What do I want? So you get just, you know, you go crazy. And really, it's all here in the body. We were not taught this because we grew up in these codependent dynamics, alcoholism. Everybody's focused on the addict, right? My family, it was focused on my stepmother's illnesses. She was severely mentally ill. Or previous to that, when my mother was alive, it was focused on dad's schizophrenia. So we're dealing with those elements. And it was never us. I can't recall a time where my parents sat down and said, what do you want? I'm like, oh. And now I'm learning what that was about. I'm like, I know what it is now. But growing up, I'm like, I'd stand you go to Kmart and pick out those little cars, the Hot Wheels. Take me an hour to choose one because I didn't know what I want. Because I was so scared of disappointing mom or dad, you know? So yeah, getting back into tune with it, back into your body, back into self-reference. Like, what do I want? What does it feel? What feels good? And then experiment with it. You'll gain a lot of traction real quick there on that angle for you. So that's right on target. All right. You're welcome. So now we've got second question, how to discover unconscious beliefs, blocks that limit and sabotage our own lives. Kind of the challenge here is that it's unconscious, right? So we need to become aware of it first. And awareness is brutal because somebody's going to point it out to you, or somebody is going to do something in which you react to and you become aware of, like, oh, I don't like that. Or you're going to make a choice that's going to create a consequence that you don't like. And you've got to stop, slow down and go, what is really going on here? And then it requires certain kinds of questions to start to understand. At first is, what happened? What's the situation? What's the context? What was my expectation? What are my beliefs about this expectation? What is the need I might have in it? What is the want I might have in it? And then we need to start listening to our self-talk. And this is hard to do because it's self-talk. It's all back here in the background. Oftentimes, you can start writing down your thoughts and you'll start seeing, oh, I'm telling myself I'm this, or I'm telling myself I'm that. Or if you're auditorily based, you can record yourself and listen to yourself back and be like, oh yeah, I'm really talking negatively about this. Or you can ask a trusted individual to reflect back to you what you're saying to them about something. Generally though, if you're getting a result, you got a pattern of a result, you know, it's the same thing over and over and over, and it's not what you want, there's definitely an unconscious and limiting belief in effect there. And then usually it's going to take someone else to mirror it back to you, so your brain can go, oh, this. So if you have that trusted individual, that's where you want to go first to make it easy and quick. But if you don't, you want to start analyzing, strategic analysis with specific kinds of questions to break it out. Like, what are my beliefs about it? What am I not aware of? And then do research. It's like, well, people who succeed do this differently. Oh, well, that can really highlight the differences between your approach and their approach. Things like that. So, yeah, what do you guys think about that? Silence is cool.
Let me get an example.
Okay, yeah, I can get you an example. For me, since I just take it from my life, since it's the one I have reference to, I had an unconscious block towards success, monetary success in business. And I kept hitting this ceiling constantly in business. It's like, oh, I just make about $7-8 grand a month, and then it all crashes down, and then it goes back up and crashes down. It's just really seesaw. And so I stopped and I said, after about 2 years of this, I was like, what is going on here? So I wrote it down, and then I went and did some research on what's called abundant mindset and scarcity mindset. Even though I teach it, I was like, I need to review this. And I was like, what do I think about money? That's the first question is. And then I started going deeper. I'm like, what do I feel about succeeding? And that's where this terror showed up. And in that terror was a belief that if I succeed, I harm people. So I had to get in there and undo that. I had to bring healing to that part of me who had been accused of harming people growing up by helping them. It was a fairly toxic message from my stepmother. You help people and that harms them. You should stop that. And I'm like, oh, I'm just being kind. And she's like, no, you could really harm them. I'm like, what? So I had to work that out. But that's an example. I don't know if that provides the detail you're looking for there, Connie, but yeah. What do you think? What are your thoughts on that?
Sorry, I'm coughing up a storm over here.
Ooh.
That's a good example. That makes sense.
Yeah, it's a tricky one. I'm constantly looking for limiting beliefs. Usually, I've learned for me, my body, if I find something that feels like it has a lot of resistance to it, like, or I get angry about, I know I've got something to look at deeper right there. Or something that just petrifies me, but is a good thing. That's also got limiting beliefs right behind it. So fear, anxiety, anger, those can all bring those up for you. Along with shame. Shame is a fantastic indicator of limiting beliefs. So if I feel shame about something, I'm telling myself a bunch of bullshit somewhere. So those are good body-based or emotion-based flags or signals for you on that. All right, so what does it mean to heal emotionally? This came from Cynthia and Duran. Okay, healing. So you can give you guys a bit of background, especially for some of you that don't know me well yet. I started all of this kind of coaching stuff based 10 years ago. I started as an apprentice in shamanism in healing trauma and working with stuck emotion. I did that for 2 years, and then I coached. I was a healer for a total of, just a healer for 4 years. And so healing is kind of like my thing. It's what I have a big passion about. And it connects really well with codependency because that was my own journey. And I was like, oh, well, we all need both. So why not do both? So to heal emotionally means to achieve relief from shame or guilt or anger or disruptive emotions that prevent us from being who we are in something. So, like for instance, I give a couple of examples. Here's an example of something that would need healing. You're going to go out and, we'll do it really relevant. You're going to ask for something you want, and you start to feel a lot of panic and dread or even shame for having a need and a want. That needs healing. Because that's going to get in your way, especially when there's shame. Something needs healing right there. Something needs love. Now, that needs healing. Now, here's an example of something that doesn't need healing. I'm going to go out and ride a roller coaster, and it's going to scare me. That's just natural adrenaline to an experience that's kind of scary. A lot of people think that healing means the elimination of an emotion. So if I healed my anxiety, I'd never have it. That's not reality. Anxiety performs a specific defense and protective purpose for us. Now, when it controls our lives, then it needs healing. There's trauma in the background. But being anxious about, going on a roller coaster or going on a date or doing something that's risky is rational because your body's like, hey, this has a threat. We can Hello. It's like, yep, we're willing to deal with the risk and the consequence. Okay, let's do it. So it's just a check-in that way for us. So healing emotionally means we are free to act. Generally, if, shame especially, you can close shame, you won't feel it anymore. Using the closure technique or other processes that we have available to us, we can achieve total closure on trauma, on shame-based wounds. And a lot of times, if we have anxiety or depression, they're an extension of shame. So we knock the shame out, those go away with it too. And we start to experience our natural inborn confidence that way. So that's what it means to heal emotionally. What do you guys think about that?
Yeah, but how do you do it?
Well, yeah. I teach that both in the closure technique and the upcoming course with Neglect and Abuse Undone. There's specific meditations and clearings I have that help you create that healing within inside yourself. And then other techniques that get in there and root out the trauma. Because first we got to shift some of our stuff here in the mind and the subconscious. Then we got to get in there and undo that. And the closure technique is a process I developed in my apprenticeship. It's originally called the white space clearing technique, and then I modified it a little bit, and I call it the closure technique. That's how we do it. But fundamentally, healing starts with mindfulness. That means meditation, presence awareness, and being able to hold space for what we feel, and then regulate when we're in distress. And I can post some links to those tools after this is done, so you can get in contact with that, Kim, and start practicing those things, because those are freely available on my YouTube channel. So, all right, and nobody answered the last question. Nobody wanted to know, why does being needed make me feel loved? And I'm going to answer that anyway, because we were conditioned to believe being needed meant being loved. Attention to a child is love. And the only time, a lot of times, we got attention or validation or praise or something warm from the parent is when we fixed their feelings or did something for them. And actually, we're going to equate being needed with being loved when we do something they need, and then they're happy about it. And that also gets us in this equation where love is controlled by the other person's approval. And this is why approval becomes so important to us. Because if we lose approval, we lose love. We lose love, we're in real trouble, real risk of dying. The body's like, I can't do this, especially as a child. If I'm not loved, I'm not protected, I'm not nurtured, I'm not cared for. So it's very much a defense mechanism, a coping strategy to surviving that love neglect. Then, Tobiah, it's your question. So, I struggle with healthy boundaries with others, falling into the fix, save, and help. I can't fix or save others. I find it so difficult to navigate relationships and maintain a healthy balance between caring about others and caring for others. All right, so this relates to the first question. You need to check in with your boundaries first. And you got to be willing to say no. And then you got to give yourself permission to let them be disappointed and to solve their own problems. Start trusting them to fix their issues. Give them the opportunity to screw up and burn down the house, kind of thing. Especially if this is in an adult relationship. If it's a parent-to-child relationship, we still have some say in that. We need to teach them how to solve their problems. Not give them the solution, but teach them how to figure it out. But with another adult, it's like, I know this really sucks. This is hard. I'm here to support you. Like, I'm going to rub your back and be present with you. What kind of things do you think you can do to help solve that problem? And encourage them to get creative about their thinking and to take responsibility for whatever it is they're dealing with, whether it's an external circumstance or something like insecurity or shame or fear of abandonment or anything like that. So what do you think about that, Tobiah? You might have to unmute. Well, you'll have to unmute yourself because I muted you. So I could unmute you.
Oh, is that?
Nope, there we are. I hear you.
Oh. Okay, I don't know what's happening. Can you hear me?
Hey, I can see you too.
Oh, that's even better. Look at me. I'm in my onesie. What do I think about that? I think that the key to that for me is remembering to say, well, what things do you think you can do, instead of, what about this? What about this? What about this? What about this?
Right.
And then getting really frustrated and overwhelmed to the point where it's almost like I want to push it away from me in an unloving way, because I'm like, okay, I feel like you want to be stuck in this situation because you're not doing any of the things that you already know you're supposed to be doing to rectify this.
Right.
And so it's hard for me not to react to that. Like, okay, you're coming to me to fix this. So, well, what about A, B, C, D, E? Oh yeah, I guess I should do some of those things. And then I feel frustrated because I'm like, well, you know you're supposed to be doing those things.
Mm-hmm. Right. Yeah, and at one point it really becomes about being blunt. It's like, that's the consequence. Sounds like that's what you want.
Right.
That can sound so cold, but if it's a repetitive issue, it's like, you're creating this now. You're not ignorant. This is not something that just is new. You're choosing this now with these choices, but I can't do anything about that. I'm going to go cook my cookies, or I'm going to go do this. You move on with your life and your boundaries because it's not your problem. It's their problem. It's that autonomy thing. It's like, my problems are mine. I'll fix them. Maybe I'm angry or frustrated with them. I'll talk about that. But I'm not giving them to somebody else. I keep them. Well, you return to sender whatever's not your problem. So it's like, hey, this is yours.
Right.
I'm here to listen if you're frustrated, but if you want solutions, what do you think you can do? What do you think is a good option for you right now? Or what do you need to research in order to figure that out for yourself?
So if I turn that around on myself and I say, okay, what do you need to do to resolve this for yourself? You know that you have unhealthy boundaries with your time. You overextend yourself trying to rescue and save other people. And then you have, stop. And then you get overwhelmed. You get really frustrated. Mm-hmm. So what do you need to do to rectify that? So if I turn that around on myself, it's hard to consistently to do those things and to remember to do those things. I keep slipping back into this, and I know better. It's like maybe you falling into something over and over again, and you're like, geez, I know this, I teach this, like, right. This is what I do. Yeah. And then it kind of starts getting frustrating for me, because then I'm like, how am I not doing this when I know better?
Right. That typically indicates that we're not meeting the need. See, there's a need when we please or we fix, there's a need involved that we're trying to get. And usually it's going to break down to feeling loved or valued or validated. So there's an insecurity driving this. Mm-hmm. So you gotta slow down and go, what need am I trying to fill by fixing so-and-so's issue?
Okay.
What need am I trying to get by overextending my time or violating this boundary?
What need am I trying to get met by overextending myself and busting my own boundary?
Bingo. And then you want to listen. You don't want to analyze, because you're trying to figure it out. If you're trying to figure it out, you're gonna be asking yourself questions and looking for an answer. You want to listen to your body. Your body's going to go, it's going to give you a response, and sometimes it'll be shame. Well, okay. So I feel shame about this need. I don't know what the need is yet. So what need do I feel shame about? You can ask your body that. What need do I feel shame about? And then you can relax and listen into it, and it'll tell you. It'll usually.
Well, how do you discern between intuition and recognizing shame or any of those other things coming up, and new stuff,
yeah. Well, see, the common confusion and misconception with intuition is that intuition's an emotion.
Right.
It's not.
Mm-hmm.
Intuition is a gut solid,
Mm-hmm.
wonder what's up there. It has no emotion. It's a knowing, zero
Right.
emotion. You might get an emotional response from yourself, or like, oh God, this or that. But emotion is not intuition.
Mm-hmm.
Whether or not it's your stuff, if it's shame, it's your stuff. If it's insecurity, it's your stuff. If it's anger, then there's a boundary issue. Someone crossed a boundary, or you're crossing your own. You need to advocate for something. That's how you can detect that. But it's okay to be upset with the other person too. I mean, if you're talking about feelings in response to stuff, a lot of times we blame ourselves for feeling a certain way, and we then talk ourselves out of the emotion, rather than going, this is what I feel about it. What do I want differently?
I feel like what I see is a cycle. When I was a kid, my mom would act like a victim. And if I had needs, or if I didn't want to make her happy, or whatever it was. And now when somebody acts like a victim, I have an anger response.
Mm-hmm.
It's like watching a bunch of ducks peck a weak one to death, like
Right.
I instantly am like, I cannot stand this.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like I respond to it in such a strong way that when somebody starts acting like a victim, I can get pretty cold and disconnected, because I'm like, I don't want to buy into this at all. I don't like it. But then I'm the bitch. I'm the bad guy, because how could you be so mean to somebody who's sick or not feeling good, or ice cream? No, suffering or something. And I'm like, this is I don't know how to describe that.
Right. All right.
When
So,
that leads back to, there are times when I feel like people are suffering because they are not doing the things that they are supposed to be doing to take care of themselves. And then they're like, oh, I'm suffering. This is so awful. I'm a terrible victim. And there's only so many times that you can be like, A, B, and C, and D. Oh, you ran out of gas? Did you put gas in your car? Did you bring a cash or a credit card? Do you need me to come and give you gas? Do you need a tow car? Like, after so many times, you're like, you have run out of gas every single day this week. You know what to do. If you're not doing it, then you are out of gas.
Yep.
And it's not my crises.
Right. It's not your crazies, because you gotta let them deal with the consequence. The consequence is the teacher there. And you don't even have to, you don't protect them from the consequence to begin with. It's a lot easier to sit back and say, oh, you ran out of gas. What do you need? And if they're calling you and say, could you bring me some gas? I'm like, sure, I'll bring you gas this time. I'll bring it to you. If it's a pattern, then yeah, you can get really sticky with it and say, whoa, there's something off here because you keep doing this. So next time, I don't know if I'm going to bring you gas, because I think you need to think about putting gas in your car first.
Mm-hmm.
So you can establish a boundary there. It's like, hey, this is the last time. It's been 9 times in the last 7 days. I'm not doing this again. You need to learn to put gas in your car. You can be blunt. Being direct feels really hard for us because it feels mean, but it is not mean. It's just accurate. It's not like we're name calling them or criticizing or attacking them, or attacking their character. It's just like, the choice here isn't really great, and you keep making it. I don't, I'm sorry that you're doing that, but what are you going to do differently next time?
Right.
And then you let them solve the problem. And it's a good indicator, depending on the kind of relationship it is, whether or not you want how much you want to invest into the relationship too. Because if it's with a child, that's one thing. If it's like with a partner or with a friend, then it's time to look at what you want out of the relationship and what you're not getting.
Well, what you said earlier hit home so hard, because vulnerability is painfully difficult for me.
Right.
I can be confrontational and, strong, but vulnerability is like, even just saying the word can bring me to tears. It feels so vulnerable.
Raw.
But when you said, you'll know right away, if you go to somebody with your vulnerability and it's not heard or responded to, then you will have your answer really fast.
Yep.
And that is an aha moment that just kind of blows my mind when I think about it.
Yeah. And that's not just a one-off thing. It needs to be a pattern, because we're all human. We all have our moments where like, but if it's a consistent issue in the relationship, you know where you stand with them. Because if they're not making time and space and empathizing with where you're coming from for 90 to 95% of the time, there's a problem.
When they're in need and you say, I care about you and I care about your feelings and I need to take care of myself right now. Your need is too much for me. And so I need to separate myself from it. Is that fair? Is that okay? Is that
it's okay to say I can't contribute or I can't do anything about your need right now. It's how you communicate it. I would approach it from this angle. It'd be like, yeah, I see you're really hurting right now. Right now my time is consumed or my space is consumed for it. So maybe let me, get some space on it, and I'll reach out to you in a bit. We can, an hour or a day or whatever, and connect that way. Because then you can take time to step back and evaluate where you're at with it, and say, is this a need I really want to respond to? Is this a need I need to take any responsibility in?
Is it a need?
Is it a need that I can even do anything about?
Right. And that's the thing. When I've already done everything I possibly can and there's nothing else I can do, it's almost like I start to panic, because then I'm like,
nope,
I've already done my things.
Now, what's happening there, this can be pretty complex, because if I came to you with a need, said, Tobiah, I'll do something really relevant. I'm really missing my mom. It's been 29 years. And then I'm like, make it better. Come on, Tobiah, fix this. And you're like, well, it really sucks. I'm like, no, I want this done. I want it to go away. And what can you do with that, right? She's dead. You can't fix that. But if I come to you and say, I'm just really missing her, and you're like, you give me a hug. You're like, yeah, I totally can see where you're coming from. Yes, it sucks. This is hard. Me as a healthy person, that's adequate, because I know it can't be fixed. It's not reasonable to ask you of anything like that. It's more like, I just need to be seen. Mm-hmm. I need my grief to be acknowledged. Mm-hmm. That's how a healthy person will do it. The unhealthy person is going to give you like, oh, I drained the gas in the car again, Tobiah, and I'm on the side of the street and I don't know what to do. I don't know what to do. And you're like, oh, now I got to do it. I got to rescue. Now you sit back and say, you know what to do. Mm-hmm. And then you ask them, what is the first step to putting gas in your car?
Do you think that there's sometimes cycles or patterns, maybe with anyone, I don't know if it's necessarily codependence, where when you are involved in relationships, if you do get busy or you are taken away for, whatever, business or sickness or your kids or something, and then the other person suddenly becomes very needy, and then things start happening where their need becomes so great, but it's when you have the least to give. Does that seem like a typical pattern that might happen because you're not available?
That's codependent behavior. Mm-hmm. They're dependent on you for them to meet the need. Mm-hmm. See, the healthy adult in that relationship would be, oh, I'm hurting. Like, let's take the grief example. Let's say you're off in Italy eating, drinking mimosas and having,
provolone and prosciutto. Yeah.
There we go. Okay. So you're out there doing that. And I'm over here and I'm like, oh, the grief of my mother's death. This is just really hard. And I'm like, I'll reach out to Tobiah and I text you, like, it's just been a hard day. And you're like, I know. Then that's healthy. That's normal. But if I'm like, it's exploding and my world is ending and I'm going to die. And you're like, I know, it just sucks. It's hard. But that's not, it's just overwhelming. And you can't do anything about it. That's unhealthy, because I'm not owning myself in that. I'm not owning my feelings. I want you to fix my feelings.
Mm-hmm.
If that's the pattern going on, it's time to have some boundary discussions about people owning their own shit and fixing it and dealing with their own emotions, because they're dependent on you. If I have to get your care so I can feel better about my grief, I can't do that myself, then there's a real problem.
That's what I think it boils down to. The panic, it does remind me of my mom wanting or needing or demanding that I fix their feelings. And then when I can't, I think that's what triggers the panic, is that I'm not safe because I know I'm going to suffer because they're not available to take care of me the way a parent is supposed to. And so as an adult, if somebody is emotionally needy and tanking, I emotionally react that way.
Right. Yeah, it's definitely an interchange. It's like, because part of you may be dependent on their stability for you to feel safe.
Right.
And taking ownership.
And for me to feel like a good person, I want to feel like I want to be a good person. I want to do the right thing. I want to be loving and present and helpful and empathetic and supportive. I want to be a good person.
Right.
I feel like I am a good person. I identify with that.
Mm-hmm.
But a good person doesn't have to fix another person's feelings to be a good person. In fact, a good person might allow somebody else to feel their feelings so that they can become stronger and work through them, maybe.
Right. You might even look at letting go of the label of good person and just show up as a healthy person and say, I know you're hurting and this sucks. I'm here to listen to the pain when I can.
Right.
Because you have limits. You're a human being. You've got time limits. You've got empathetic limits. You've got energy limits. You've got emotional capacity limits. And it's okay to be limited. And for the other person, it's a great opportunity for them to realize what a privilege it is to have someone make space for them, even for 3 seconds, to consider their feelings. Because they're not entitled to your empathy. Your empathy is not mandatory. Your empathy is a gift. It is not a right or an entitlement to anybody else. You get the right to occupy the space of not caring, and you get the right to dictate where you put your empathy time and energy.
Right, because it kind of feels like sitting in a bathtub with the plug not in it. I have so much warm water. I have so much empathy to give. And then once that's out, it starts to run cold. And it's like, this bath is running cold.
Yeah, it just breaks down that way. And you need to know where your limits are. And we're in an adult to adult relationship. The other adult needs to learn that too. Because you're not their mom.
Okay.
So that means boundaries on your part. And that also means you going in a little deeper into the need you're getting filled by being needed.
Right, right.
Going deeper.
I feel like a good person.
Right.
When I help someone.
So what's the benefit of being a good person? What does that get you?
I guess serenity or self-esteem or peace. Just, I don't want to be a piece of shit. You know what I mean? I don't want to be one of those people who go through the world making it worse.
Right. So it sounds like there's an assumption there that you're a piece of shit, so you have to prove otherwise. Maybe they might look at that. There's another question to ask is, what does being a good person give you permission to feel?
Okay with myself. Like,
that
I am validated or I'm okay.
You're okay. Okay. So now you can take like principle 1, living your power with law 1. You can begin to practice occupying the space of being okay despite other people's opinions, or despite being a normal person or a bad person or whatever you want to label it. You get a chance to make that free and occupy the authority to be okay regardless of what other people are thinking, feeling, or doing. If that makes sense.
So giving myself permission to feel good about myself regardless of what I am doing. So that goes back to what I feel like you said earlier. What do I need to feel right now? I need to feel good about myself. I give myself permission to feel good about myself without having to do anything else.
Right. You don't have to earn being good. You don't have to earn being okay. You get to be okay, and other people get to be not okay, and they get to live with it.
It just occurred to me that is shame.
Yes.
Something's wrong with me. I'm not good enough.
Bingo.
Not enough.
Yeah, you have a belief.
What did you say earlier? Anytime shame or anger comes up, there's
an unconscious belief there. Yeah.
How do you get to the bottom of that unconscious belief? If I start to say, okay, if I go down the rabbit hole and I'm like, I want to feel okay, I give myself permission to feel okay. If I'm not feeling okay, there's shame there. Then what is the unconscious belief? How do I get to the root of that?
Well, the root we already found is that you believe you have to be okay, or you need somebody else's permission to give you the right to be okay. See, so if you look at the rules you have about being okay, you'll see the unconscious belief show up as I'm only worthy of being okay when X, Y, and Z, whatever.
I'm helping someone. Yeah.
Which is not true. Right now, you're sitting on a bed talking to me. Are you okay?
Yeah.
Oh, well, we just broke one rule because you're not helping anybody. Cool.
But there's nobody demanding me right now. There's nobody saying I'm sick or I'm hungry or I have a crisis.
See, now we got a little deeper. Is it okay? Can I be okay despite somebody else having a demand that I don't want to take care of? How's that ring? What comes up for you there?
I think the fear is that I'm turning into my mom or dad. Like when I think you're such a bad person, I need you so much right now and you're not there for me. I never want to be that person.
All right. So you have some black and white thinking going on. All or nothing thinking functioning right there. So now you can start to get honest with yourself and qualify. You can sit down and like, I do this well and I do this well and I do this well. You can validate the things you do that are genuinely loving and good and kind while accepting that, saying no doesn't make me a bad person. Period. It never did. It would to the narcissist, because suddenly the narcissist has to be an adult and take care of themselves. Oh no. Boo-hoo. It's more like it's time for, hey, I got my boundary. I don't want to. I'm not obligated to fix anything or take care of anybody. If I were, then this wouldn't be love. It would be hell. So, yeah, you can start playing with giving yourself permission to disappoint other people, basically, while still being a great person, being a badass person, being a rebel, being worthy of love, being love. You don't earn it. Since we don't earn it, we don't have to go out and do things to prove it. It's more like, man, I'm sorry your day sucked. I'm wiped out too. But, I'm going to get some rest and I will check in with you tomorrow. I've done that, and I've had people do it to me, and it's a normal, healthy thing. That's life. I'm an adult. I can take care of myself. So,
right.
Yeah.
Okay.
So what do you think about all that?
I think it's all spot on, and I think it's accurate. I think my work is to remember that and be able to consciously recall it and do it when I'm in the thick of it.
Right. You might also want to look at what needs healing so that you don't have to think about it so much.
Right.
And knock that out. If we find an epicenter in need or like real shame towards saying no, then we just knock that out with like the closure technique or something so that you don't have to process and analyze. You can just be like, I don't want to, and go on with your life.
I love that closure technique. It's so good.
Right?
It really is. I felt very, very triggered the night before last, and I was walking myself like, is your is your little girl calling you? Do you hear her? Like, what is she saying? And it's very interesting to follow that through and try to respond, even though some of it might not feel like it makes sense, or some of the answers might feel way out there.
Mm-hmm.
It's interesting to.
Yeah, you follow it because we're just trying to nurture what's in the subconscious, the inner self, the inner child there, and give them what they need or what they want.
Sometimes it's just so random. It doesn't make sense. And you're like,
yeah, that's the analysis getting in there.
yeah.
Remember, analysis just creates paralysis. It doesn't. If analysis created healing, I'd be out of business. You guys would be healed. And it doesn't. So, yeah, continue to nurture that. But you find something in there with this pull you've got going on, and you knock that out, and then you can have more freedom, more peace there.
Okay.
Okay. Cool.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're very, very welcome. So anybody else? Because that's all the questions we had posted. So anybody else have a question they would like to shoot at in like 5 minutes? The sound of children. Chaos. Okay. So thank you guys for being here, for showing up. We'll do this again next week. Again, if you've got questions that pop up, just post them in the group. Be glad to respond. Sometimes I'll do a Facebook Live to answer those. Next week, we'll do this again. And thank you again for being here. You guys have a great evening.
Thank you so very much.
Yeah, you're welcome, Kim. It was good to meet you.
You too. Take care.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
I really liked this. This was fun. Little group face-to-face. Yeah, at home on your phone.
Right. It's so
Good
simple.
job.
Yeah, thank you. It's good to see you again. Bye-bye.